What's going on, everybody? It's Chris from 416 Coffee, and this is episode 3 of Coffee with Chris. And I received a lot of requests to talk about kind of brewing equipment and the best gifts this holiday season to get for the coffee lover in your family. So I'm going to go right into that now. The first thing that everyone needs to brew great coffee at home is Burr coffee grinder. So buying a Burr coffee grinder is literally the step every coffee lover takes when they go from taking their coffee kind of seriously at home to taking it very seriously. Grinding your coffee fresh is going to give a whole new experience to you personally. The reason being is that when coffee's ground, it starts to lose a lot of flavors, it loses a lot of gases, and it starts to fall apart very quickly. So you want to brew the coffee as close to when it was ground as possible. And if you're brewing, for example, with an espresso machine, this is like non-negotiable. Like if you're trying to make good espresso at home, you need to be fresh grinding your beans. So Burr grinders in the past were super expensive, but now you can pick something up that's gonna be good on Amazon for like under $100. Like this grinder will work fine for um, pour overs, French press, anything like that. This grinder is not quite there for espresso because you just need to be getting super fine for espresso. But for a French press where you need something coarse, or for even a filter coffee where you need something pretty fine but not super fine, this is gonna work great for you. And this grinder is about $60 Canadian. So I'll have the link below, but any cheap grinder under $100 is gonna be great for filter coffee and filter coffee and French press. Just make sure it's a burr grinder. You don't want to be getting a disc grinder because a disc grinder just has, or a blade grinder, sorry, not a disc grinder. A blade grinder, you don't want to be getting a blade grinder because it has trouble breaking up the coffee into uniform pieces. And when you have pieces of coffee that aren't uniform, you have some over extracting, some under extracting. The surface area exposed to water is different. So you want your coffee to be ground uniformly, and a Burr grinder will do that for you. And now you, like I said, you can get them for about under $100 Canadian, and it will make a huge difference in how your coffee tastes. The second most important thing every coffee brewer at home should have is scale, and bonus points if it has a timer. So basically, you need a scale because you need to be measuring how much ground coffee is going in, how much water you're using, how much coffee is coming out, and if it has a timer, you don't need to use your phone, makes it a lot easier, and you can gauge how long that takes. Now, for people just getting into the specialty coffee industry, this might seem like overkill. Like, this is way too much. Why are we doing all of this? And I always tell people coffee is part science, part art. And the science part allows you to have results that you can replicate. Meaning, have you ever made a great cup of coffee and then had trouble doing it again? I'm sure you have, especially if you're not measuring. But if you can break down a consistent recipe where you're using this much coffee, you're using this much water, and it's brewing through in this amount of time, then you can have consistent results. So you can use a scale for your French press, you can use a scale for any pour over device, and you definitely need a scale if you're trying to brew espresso at home. So brewing ratios are very simple. Probably you want to start at about 65 grams of coffee per liter of water as a rough starting point. And then, depending on your brew method, you'll adjust the grind and the brew time to get the strength you're kind of looking for. But if you don't have a scale on a timer, you won't be able to do that with any sort of accuracy. You'll just kind of be stabbing in the dark every time you're making coffee. So, invest in a scale with a timer. They're super inexpensive. I have the link below for this one. This is a Hario scale, meant to be used with the V60 brewing method, but this will work perfectly with a Chemex, with a French press, or you can use this to weigh your espresso machine shots as well. So you need a scale. Like you need a scale, especially if you want to have consistent results with your coffee. You 100% need to invest in a good scale. Last but not least, you need to invest in a gooseneck kettle. So this just offers a lot of control with pouring water and make sure you're covering grounds, especially if you're using any sort of pour over technique. So if you're using a Chemex, a V60, a wave brewer, any of those things, you're gonna need a gooseneck kettle. Now, these, you can spend a lot of money on gooseneck kettles with fancy temperature controls and things like that. You don't necessarily need all of that. It'll help, and I would recommend it, but you can easily just spend, like, this kettle is about $40, and just let it come to a boil, it'll pop, let it come 30 seconds off the boil, then that water is pretty good for any sort of brew method you might want to do. Now, depending on the roast profile of your coffee, you might be able to let it sit for less time. So, for example, if you're using a really light coffee, those coffees can usually take hot water on a bit better than something that's more darkly roasted. Those coffees need cooler water. So, depending on your roast, you can play with that a bit, but the variance isn't going to be massive. It's going to be very subtle. So, I would say let your kettle pop, 30 seconds off a boil. That water is good for whatever you need it to do. These kettles are like $40. Now, if you want something with temperature control, you can spend, gooseneck kettles, you can spend upwards of like $400. But to get started, $40 gooseneck kettle, and you're good for like V60s, Chemex. It'll help with your French press. It's a great piece of equipment, not a lot of money, and it just adds that extra little bit of control you need to make great coffee at home. So that's it. Those are the three kind of accessories I think you need to make sure you're making great coffee at home. Any of those would make a great gift. I know the holidays are coming up, so if you have a coffee lover in your life that's trying to up their coffee game, any of those things would make a great gift, help them improve the quality of their coffee. So thank you so much for watching. I'm coming down with a bit of a cold, so thank you for bearing with me through my scratchy voice and all, and I hope to see you next time.